So today we're going to talk about two things. Should you make a Korean name and how to make a Korean name? So first of all, what is a Korean name? Well, most Korean names are comprised of 3 syllables. You have 1 syllable for the last name, and then 2 syllables here for the first name. Now there are variances on this, but let's just talk about the most basic type of Korean name. The last name is inherited from the parents, the father's last name, and the first name will be picked by the parents to be whatever the parents want. This can be done by either using Sino-Korean syllables, which each have a different meaning to them, or by just picking a pure Korean name, which is less common, but these days becoming more popular. So first let's talk about should you have a Korean name? Well, I think that there are some reasons beyond just it sounds cool or I want to blend into Korean culture. So if you live in Korea, then you'd already know that Koreans like asking what your Korean name is or if you have one. And if you don't, Koreans might try to give you one kind of for fun. If your name in your native language is extremely difficult to pronounce or really long, then you might actually benefit a lot from having a Korean name because it would be much simpler for people to call you, whether you choose just a nickname in Korean or a regular Korean name. If you have some personal reasons or a legal reason even to change your name or use a Korean name, that's completely legitimate as well. And in fact, I know some people who have done that for legal reasons. Or maybe you just want a Korean name just to have a Korean name. So when people ask if you do, you can say, yes, I do. There's one thing that you need to note about all these situations. If you have a Korean name, when a Korean person asks you for your name, if you give them a Korean name, there's a high likelihood that they're going to doubt that that's your real name. And in fact, giving someone a Korean name when you're not a Korean, when you don't look like you're a Korean, can kind of seem like you're giving them just a nickname or an alias. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but just know that if you give a Korean name when they ask for your name, they're going to know that that's not your original birth name, most likely. If you met someone who was clearly not from the United States, and they introduce themselves to you as Pikachu Gonzalez Skywalker, you're probably not going to believe that that's their real name, and if they force you to call them Pikachu Gonzalez Skywalker all the time, you might feel a bit uncomfortable. Still, with that said, that doesn't mean having a Korean name is a bad thing, and I would recommend that everyone who spends time in Korea for any extended period of time should have in their back pocket a Korean name that they can pull out. Let's talk about how you can create a Korean name. The easiest way to get a Korean name is actually just to ask a Korean. But you have to be careful because my first Korean name was An Kyung-tae, which An would be the last name, a common Korean last name, and Kyung-tae, normally not spelled this way, is another Korean first name. But put together, An Kyung-tae is actually Ankyung, glasses, and tae, frame. So this means like glasses frames. It's kind of like a pun. I did not fall for this, so I didn't use this when I was in Korea. Another one they tried to give me was a Kim Cheolsu. And if you know anything from my videos or from my books that I've written, Cheolsu is a textbook sounding name, kind of like Bobby. So I didn't use that one either. And another Korean name that I got from native Koreans was Kim Hyunmin, which is a really kind of fancy sounding name, like being named, I don't know, Vincent or something in English. As long as you're aware that you might not get a really good name, in these cases it didn't turn out well, you can still get really good names from Koreans. Just make sure you check them. I would say check with Google to search the name and make sure regular people's faces pop up to make sure that it's a good name before you actually start using that. Another way to pick a Korean name takes a lot more time, but that is using a Korean name dictionary, and I'll put a link in the description. What this is a dictionary comprised of Chinese characters that are only used in Korean names. So it won't be every Chinese character there is, just the ones that are used within Korean names. So you can pick from those, look up the meanings of each of those syllables, and compose your own name in Korean. For your last name, that can be anything, so you can pick one of the most common ones, which would be Kim, Lee, Park, and Choi, or you can go with anything else you'd like. But this one is slightly difficult to do because you have to be familiar with Chinese characters, or at least what their sounds and meanings are. So you won't be able to easily pick a name based on a meaning, but what you could do is pick a meaning based on a name that you've already chosen. For example, if you know that your name should be Sujung in Korean, you can search for the different characters for Su and Jung and pick one that you'd like. That way your name is not just your name, but also has meaning to it, just like most Korean names, which have 3 syllables. Another way to pick a name in Korean is if you just so happen to have a name in your native language that sounds like a Korean name already. If your English name is Susie, Suzanne, you could pick Suji, which is a Korean name, or Jamie, you could do Taemi. If your name is Violet, you can go with Bora, which means violet in Korean. Or if your name is Crystal in English, you could go with Sujong. And there are other ones like this, but I think in general, you just have to get lucky to have one of these names that matches with a Korean name. One more way you can pick Korean names is simply by using a pure Korean word and not even worrying about Chinese characters. Now, this one will be a little more difficult as well because you have to be very familiar with what a pure Korean word is, but if you search in the dictionary and don't find any Chinese characters listed next to it, then that's a good start for it being a pure Korean word. Common names like this would be something like Haner, Nara, or even more obscure ones like Maru. And these ones are fine too, but a little bit more difficult to pick. So here's one more way that you can pick names, and I think it's kind of fun. Take 2 of your favorite Korean celebrities' names, or 2 of your Korean friends, or 2 Koreans that you like. Take their names and write them down. For example, I'll take 2 male celebrities that I like, Kim Dong-won and Jang Hyuk. So I could try to combine these together to get maybe Kim Dong-hyuk, or maybe Kim Jang-won, like that. And after you've done that, check with Google. Put that new name that you just made using any of these methods straight into Google and make sure that you get regular people's faces, not old newspaper clippings in black and white. That means you've created a older sounding name, but regular color pictures. Better even if you find people's Instagram pages by searching for that name. That means your name is not only used by actual Koreans, but will not sound too weird. In my opinion though, the best way to make a really solid Korean name is to go with the Chinese character route. And in fact, that's how I made my son's name, by first thinking of a kind of name that we wanted in Korean and then trying to match characters, looking at those characters' meanings and then changing the name to fit something with a better meaning that we wanted. It takes a lot of time, however, so I can't recommend that you do this unless you have a lot of time and Korean friends to help you out with it. And if you do get lucky and your Korean friend decides to help you pick out a name and they help you pick out Chinese characters and stuff, do buy them a meal. It is a big process to pick out a name. It's not something that we can do really simple. I've had people message me on Facebook saying, hey, Billy, can you give me a Korean name? I'm sorry, I can't give you a really good Korean name. It takes a lot of time to give someone a good Korean name. So I would recommend doing one of these other methods if you don't have much time. But let me know if you have your own Korean name in the comments. Thanks for watching. Also, thanks to my Patreon supporters as well as my YouTube supporters. I'll see you guys next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.